Hey you, Meowkaiser coming at you today with something that's kind of like a guide. A lot of people have been asking for guides on the research result, but the reality about doing guides on something that has only been out for a week is that a lot of what I'm about to say is highly opinionated, as well as lacking a lot of like hard evidence backing up what I say. Uh, a lot of people are experimenting with new strategies, and another thing that's happening is that a lot of these research results, these cells, they're getting changed on the fly with preseason. Now, I will put a tag on this video the moment that this video becomes outdated, and you'll find a link to the updated video down below. But if you like this kind of stuff, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. So let's get into this real quick. So you have multiple loadouts that you can do. Technically, you can really just use one of these and just change it before every single game. I just have an excess of gold, so I just buy extra slots. But the reality is you could just stick with one and just edit it every time you want to play a different character. So there are 4 of them. It's not actually obvious that there's 4 of them, because when you open this screen, you see these 3 first, and you don't know that you can slide over to the 4th one. So yes, there are 4, for those of you who do not know that there are 4. So there is the healing cell, the biomechanics, the ultra vibration, and the environmental variable is what they call it. This is an awful name, but that's just me. So we're going to go into it one by one, and we're going to talk about what they do and what they mean towards the game, and like characters that kind of synergize with it, right? So let's start with Healing Cell. So with Healing Cell, you start with damage taken -2 and all recovery effectiveness plus 15% when HP is below 30%. So damage taken -2 is good, especially early game. It synergizes very well with armor rushing strategies. All recovery effectiveness plus 15% when HP is below 30%. So this one's a little bit weird, right? So most likely, at most points in the game, getting down that low is incredibly risky, right? So that particular ability really only synergizes with Jenny when she has Play Dead up, because she can get there reliably. But the downside to that is that Play Dead sets her to 50 HP when she dies, right? Oh, are you serious? It's really going to do this to me? That's awful. Fine, I'll just pick 2 real quick to make my point. Get out of my face. Anyway, so let's go to Jenny real quick, the only character that really synergizes with that. So if you look at her stats, her max HP is 205, meaning that she doesn't get the benefit of the extra healing until she's at level 18, because at level 18, her when she gets set to 50 from her passive, she still gets the benefits from the skill, right? So it's kind of one of those things, whereas at level 1, she only gets the benefit at, so it's at like what, 30% HP, so 30 plus 6, so at 36 HP or less. So meaning if you trigger Play Dead, you do not get the ability. That's just another thing to keep in mind. So that actually kind of has a little bit of late game scaling, kind of, but she's the only character that actually does anything with it. Anyway. You have an option between 2 different kind of effects, right? So you get to have a choice for both of these. So for the first one, max HP plus 5 at the start of combat, and max HP plus 10 upon reaching level 12. If you've watched anything on my effective health video, you'll know max HP isn't actually worth that much. The only character that cares about max HP is Cicella. That's it. And she wants as much of it as possible, so the plus 10 is the best for her. There's not much to say here, and it's part of the reason why Green Cell isn't particularly that good. And then you got this one. This one gives you stamina recovery plus 1 when resting, and HP recovery plus 1 when resting. You're not going to be seeing a lot of value from this. You don't want to be resting as much as possible through the game. You want to be spending as much of the game searching, fighting, and not resting. If you're resting, that's suboptimal, but yeah, sometimes it happens, right? My experience with this is that the stamina recovery +1 is the best out of these two, but that being said, Green Cell doesn't actually have a lot going for it. It has very little synergies, and outside of armor rushing, right? I'll explain why. The damage taken -2 is kind of covered in other branches anyway. Oh, interesting thing that we discovered when we were playing Cicella. The damage taken -2 applies to true damage for some reason, skill damage. When Cicella unshackles, you can actually see who has Healing Cell because they take 2 less damage than everyone else. Who'd knew? So let's talk about biomechanics. This one is my favorite cell. It's a lot of players' favorite cell, and it does a lot for you throughout the entire game. A lot of newer players haven't really been able to recognize how good this is, and I think a lot of it has to do with a misunderstanding of how stamina in this game works. In one of my videos, and I will say it again, stamina is worth 2 HP. Every 1 stamina you have is 2 HP. Because the reality is, in this game, every time you exhaust stamina, you lose 2 HP. And so your thinker's like, okay, well, that would never matter if you keep your stamina up. But the reality is that if you don't keep your stamina up, you can't move. If you can't move, you can't get HP. If you can't get HP, you can't get mastery. If you can't get mastery, you can't win the game. It's a downward spiral. So let's cover this first skill that gives you. So recovery 40 stamina once after each exhaustion. Stacks will be recovered after each new restriction round. If you play around this, I found out that you can get around like the first 2 restrictions just off of a single stamina item, like just making one set of, I don't know, hot chocolates, hot honey water, the oatmeal raisin tea, whatever it is. You can actually get around with a lot less stamina items, and this lets you focus more on food. And what's neat about this is that you don't even need to take accelerate anymore. You're seeing a lot of characters getting enabled by taking counterattack, which actually is part of what makes this so strong, is the fact that you can take counterattack, which reduces incoming damage by 40%. I think it's either like 60 or 40%. Either way, you end up getting a lot of effective healing out of that aptitude. Now, obviously, the ideal situation is to not need this at all, but you know what? This actually makes a lot of routes work, especially low stamina routes. Out of these two, max stamina plus 15 at the start of combat, this is awful. You're only getting 15 stamina once at the start of the game, whereas stamina required to move to another area will be -1 after reaching level 5. Later towards the game, you'll be triggering this over and over again, so you will be moving more than 15 times at level 5. You'll be getting more value out of this one. This one's just strictly better. For the second one, this one is a little bit more character dependent. Combat breathing, which recovers +1 stamina when attacking an enemy, and balance disruption, decrease the enemy stamina by -2 when attacking them. For most of the cast, combat breathing is the best for them, because you actually want to be saving stamina as much as possible. Balance disruption, the problem with this skill is that you saving stamina is more beneficial than you forcing somebody to lose stamina, right? The only exception where a character can really abuse this is William, because William already has a ridiculous amount of stamina. He already struggles enough as it is to even use this at all. If you want my personal opinion, you probably shouldn't be going biomechanics on William, but everyone's been having a blast doing it, so whatever. Balance disruption, if you're going to go William with this, if you ask me, William should be doing like ultra vibration or something. So, leads into this, ultra vibration. So you get armor penetration rate +7% when HP is above 70%. So, at SS, you get 15% armor penetration, I believe. So effectively, ultra vibration gives you half of SS's benefits right at the start of the game. And so, a lot of characters can abuse this, and a lot of characters that you wouldn't think be able to abuse this can actually abuse this. So, like, obviously, first character that comes to mind is Yuki, right? I found out that Hyunwoo can actually abuse this, even though a lot of times he wants to take the blue one. Hyunwoo can actually keep himself pretty high in health just because of his brawler skill, which gives him some regeneration while he's fighting. So It's kind of one of those weird synergies that you wouldn't think about. So your first result, you can either choose additional damage +1 when attacking a survivor to level 10, or additional damage +4 when attacking a wild animal. The reality about wild animals is that what matters the most about wild animals is how many attacks you can get off on them, rather than how quickly you can kill them, right? You don't actually want to be killing animals too quickly, because the reason why animals are so strong is because you can get free attacks on them without having to trade a lot of HP for it, so you get mastery basically for free. It's the reason why a lot of hand players will unequip their weapon when they attack an animal so they can get more attacks off and gain more mastery. So this just strictly makes this one better. We get additional damage +1 when attacking a survivor after level 10. It's just strictly better. The second one, this one's a little bit weird. Molecular structure scan, which is earn plus 50% mastery when crafting a melee weapon, and quantum fluctuation, which is overload, one load for bullet/arrow when loading, and add extra +1 quantity when crafting for thrown weapon, except for legendary grade weapons. So both of these are incredibly interesting. Even for our melee characters, it's not quite yet clear which one to go for, because this works with heated whetstones and the heated oil. So you'll actually craft 3 heated whetstones and 3 oil every time you do it, which a lot of people can find very valuable. For this one, we actually found out that it can actually get you a pretty decent head start. Let me check the Black Survival Wiki real quick. So it's not obvious at first how much extra mastery this is giving you. So every time you craft an uncommon weapon, you get 0.5 mastery for it. So 0.5 of an attack. So a rare is the equivalent of 1 attack, and an epic is equivalent of 2 attack. With molecular structure scan, you get 0.75 on uncommon, 1.5 on rare, and 3 on epic. And on characters like Alex, they can do multiple weapons, hence the meme video. But a lot of characters want to be building 2 weapons anyway. And even with the first weapon, right, those extra hits that you get, some weapons actually require you to build 2 rare items, or even 3, right? Which means that you can actually double dip on this skill more often. Excuse me. And so those extra hits actually end up helping you start a lead, which we found out was very relevant when a lot of characters were getting buffed from D to D+. Extra mastery is nothing to cough at, even if it's like a couple hits. So it's just one of those things where this particular tree is very hard to evaluate and exactly how valuable it is, but it's something to look at. And then we have the last one, environmental variable. This is a lot of people's least favorite one. You start with equipping 1 random common grade cloth armor item. Wow, it doesn't say what it is at all. Okay, cool. Well, it says on the their little update page what it actually gives you. So it can give you monk robe, it can give you the doctor's gown, it can give you windbreaker, the swimsuit, the fabric armor, and I believe, oh yeah, and the cassock, right? Those 6 things. So this misses incredibly hard if you get the monk's robe out of all things. So this actually just has the chance of just being near useless to you. But this is where this cell gets really complicated, right? So you can either receive 1 boiling water or 1 scorched rice soup at the start game. So you get to choose 40 HP or like whatever you're going to craft. Currently, there's no strategy that kind of works with this quite yet, except for like maybe the extra safety, but you don't really need it early. Most of the time, you'll probably be taking the boiling water and just crafting something with it, depending on what your start is. It's a little bit weird. I could see you going this when you're going into Uptown, but most of the time you want to just be making choco pies. So it's kind of one of those like weird, like we don't actually know how to apply this quite yet. And then this one's the most interesting and the hardest to evaluate. So both of these give you plus 8% chance to discover 2 items depending on different ones. This one does it near bodies of water, and this one does it near rugged terrain, right? And so you'll notice something about the areas that they chose is that they're actually very high contested areas because they're good for not only armor crafting, but for food. Most notably, this one is for the fish areas, and this one is for like if you're carrying boiling water and you want to make like a bunch of oriental concoctions early and get through there early, or even like this is actually might be decent with what's it called? Gemstone builds. So it's one of those things where it's really hard to evaluate just how good it is. A couple people have been experimenting with Leon, but who knows how good it actually is? We'll see as the meta defines itself. I honestly expect them to buff this a little bit if they want this to be like somewhat valuable, but we'll see what they do. So anyway, that's kind of like my quick rundown. I will be making another video if they update this again, and I do expect them to update it. The entire preseason will last until the end of this month, so they've got a lot of time to change this around. Anyway, I hope you liked it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.